We are
Tam
and Sam,
and we will be going through one of the most fatal and viral diseases. Rabies!
What is rabies?
Great question. Let me explain. Rabies is a virus which affects the central nervous system. That comes from the Lyssa virus, which is under the Rhabdovirus family.
Wait, the central nervous system?
Don't know the central nervous system? We'll come back to that later. The Lyssa virus includes the typical rabies virus, as well as ABLV, Australian bad Lyssa virus, which is closely related to rabies too. Did you know that the rabies virus, which has been in the world for almost 4,000 years, still has a 100% fatality rate if symptoms start to appear?
What? No way.
I know, right? Quite scary, isn't it?
Well, how can you get it?
Rabies in humans is commonly transmitted through animal to human, but there are some cases of human-to-human transmission.
There's human-to-human transmission?
Yeah, there is. Animal-to-human transmission occurs when the saliva from an infected animal goes into the body through either the eyes, nose, mouth, or open wounds. The most common transmission occurs through a rabid animal biting or scratching someone where their skin barrier breaks, leading in the virus to seep inside the body. In a case for human-to-human transmission, the only documented way was through an organ donation, with the infected person donating the organ to the transplant recipient.
Oh my god, no way. Wait, so what does the rabies do to the body anyways?
I'm glad you asked. Rabies affects the central nervous system, as mentioned before. The central nervous system plays a prominent role in our body, making up our brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Its function is to take in sensory information and send out signals all across the body to respond accordingly to it.
Oh, I know. Sensory information. Does that mean the 8 senses, the sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, vestibular, interoception, and proprioception are all related?
You got it. So your feeling of hunger, which is interoception, or movement like running, which is proprioception, these are all controlled by the central nervous system. Now that we know the central nervous system, let's go on to the construction of the rabies virus before we fully dive into the symptoms and the way it travels through our body.
All right!
So, the rabies virus itself is a bullet shape, which is approximately 180 nanometers long and 75 nanometers wide. Let's dissect the construction of the virus in simpler terms. Let's say the virus is made of 4 parts. The dark blue strand is the RNA, also known as the ribonucleic acid. Although it is similar to DNA, it only has 1 strand. It's a genetic material located in the center of the virus and acts as the brain to tell the virus how to multiply. Then there's the proteins. The rabies virus consists of 5 proteins, including nucleoprotein, phosphoprotein, polymerase, matrix protein, and glycoprotein. From this diagram, you can also see that the N, L, and P proteins surrounding the RNA. These protect the RNA, while also aid in the process of replication. The M protein is involved in the outer envelope of the RNA. Lipid layer is a protective envelope that is around the protein coat. As you can see, the lipid layer and the M protein envelope traces one another. Lastly, there are G protein spikes located on the surface of the virus. These spikes can amount up to 400 and recognize and bind cell receptors.
Ooh, yikes. The rabies virus sure is complicated.
Yeah, I know, right?
So, what does this tiny thing do to our body?
Well, it's quite complicated, you see.
Follow the virus! Symptoms!
To put it simply, there are 5 phases when someone gets infected. Phase 1, which is the incubation period. Phase 2, which is the prodromal phase. Phase 3 being the acute neurological phase, which splits into 2 types, furious rabies and dome rabies. Phase 4 is when the patient goes into a coma. Phase 5 is death.
Whoa, that's a lot of phases.
I'm well aware. Let's look at phase 1, the incubation phase, shall we?
Phase 1, incubation period.
The first phase, which is the incubation phase, which lasts for around 20 to 90 days depending on the site of infection, how severe the wound is, and the amount of rabies virus. Although there were some documented events on it lasting 4 days to 6 years.
6 years? No way.
I know, right? So it's very important that if you go to a country that isn't rabies-free and you get bitten, it's safe to check it out no matter how long ago it was. Anyways, say that you get bitten in the hand. The rabies cell from the saliva goes into the muscles and would affect the muscle cells. The cell then duplicates itself within the muscles by limiting the detection of antigen-presenting cells.
Wait, what are antigen-presenting cells?
Basically, they're cells that recognize viruses and bacteria, like some types of white blood cells. Then, retrograde axonal transport of the rabies virus occurs, where the virus travels through the sensory and motor nerves to the spinal cord and then to the brain. When the virus reaches the nervous system in our body, phase 1 is complete. The virus has entered phase 2, the prodromal phase. Now, it's very important to note that the incubation period is very important, as we can still intervene with the transmission of rabies. Once it reaches the prodromal phase, the fatality rate significantly increases.
Significantly? Like, how much?
Once the virus affects our nervous system, symptoms would start to appear, and when they do, the fatality rate reaches up to 99 to 100%.
What?
Yeah, quite scary. Anyways, let's continue. Now, let's zoom in on the brain and see what's happening inside there.
Phase 2, prodromal phase.
Inside the brain, you can see the rabies virus affecting the neurons, a nerve cell that sends and receives neurotransmitters. If the neuron is infected, it would contain Negri bodies, which are clumps of protein from the virus within its cytoplasm. After the virus has spread within the brain, it does the opposite of axonal retrograde transport. The virus moves outwards from the brain to other visceral organs such as the eyes, skin, salivary glands, and etc.
Is that why when the saliva from the rabbit animal comes into contact with open skin, it affects you? Because the rabies virus traveled to the salivary glands?
You got that right. In fact, this whole process of moving out from the brain is called the anterograde transport. Now, let me teach you the symptoms that may experience during the prodromal phase. You may experience fever, which is a flu-like illness, nausea or vomiting, pharyngitis, which is commonly known as a sore throat, diarrhea, insomnia, or agitation, and lastly, pain and itching on the inoculation site, which is the place where you get bitten, is common, occurring in 30% of canine-related rabies cases and 70% of bat-related rabies cases. This is pathognomonic, meaning that it only occurs in rabies disease specifically.
That's a lot of nasty symptoms that sound painful.
Yeah, it's definitely not fun. After 2 to 10 days of the prodromal phase, the disease progresses onto phase 3, the acute neurological phase.
Phase 3, acute neurological phase.
So, there are 2 types of acute neurological phase, which includes furious rabies, which 4 out of 5 rabies patients have, and dumb rabies, which 1 out of 5 rabies patients have. Furious rabies, lasting from a few days to a week, include episodic symptoms that last for less than 5 minutes. These can be triggered by visual and or tactile stimuli, or it can happen out of nowhere. These include, but are not limited to, agitation, seizures, hallucination, thrashing, episodic delirium, which is confusion in awareness and thinking, aphasia, which is reading, writing, speaking, and comprehension problems, hyperventilation, and lastly, hydrophobia and aerophobia can also be present by those who have furious rabies. Spasms may occur to the patient when attempting to drink water, and asphyxia, which is a sense of suffocation, when air is blown to the face. Other than these episodic symptoms presented above, furious rabies can also cause anisocora, which is one pupil bigger or smaller than the other, dilated pupils, facial paralysis, excessive saliva production, excessive production of tears, and postural hypertension, which is when the blood pressure significantly drops after sitting or laying down for a long period of time and then suddenly standing up, causing dizziness. That was furious rabies.
Whoa, the amount of symptoms there were mind-boggling.
Ha ha ha, so many symptoms, right? Anyways, dumb rabies on the other hand, which can last up to a month, has less symptoms. Although this may seem like a good thing, those with dumb rabies are hard to detect and are often misdiagnosed as their symptoms are not pathognomonic. These include symptoms such as fevers, headaches, mucous rigidity, which is stiffness in the neck, excessive production of saliva, and as the symptoms of dumb rabies are not pathognomonic, they include no sensory issues, such as hydrophobia or aerophobia. And lastly, dumb rabies appears to mimic the Guillain-Barré syndrome, aka GBS, where the immune system harms the body's nerves, leading to weakened muscles. This is why those who have dumb rabies often get misdiagnosed, as their symptoms are closely related to the Guillain-Barré syndrome. Both, after their time has passed, would then escalate into phase 4, a coma, which later results in death, phase 5.
Wait, if it's that deadly and there's no cure, are there still ways to help stop it or prevent it in some way?
Yes, there is! I was just about to go onto the topic of prevention.